Recording in progress and live on Facebook, about to be in progress. So hold on. Da 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 da. Tonight's show theme song playing in the background of my brain at all times.
Okay, we should be live.
Just a minute. Rock Rega, I have to do a little something here for it to work. Okay, that's good. Okay, got it. We're live streaming. We're live on Facebook Live. Oh my God. Baruch Hashem, it's the 9 Days of Jerry, the 12th annual 9 Days of Jerry on Radio Free Nachlaot.
Woo!
Day number five, and I feel like, I'm going like a string of dead shows. I mean, because every night there's been a different guest and a different focus on the Dead's music. So it's not like just every year playing, 24/6 Jerry related music, but having these events, I feel like, I'm going to another show. Here we are. This is day number 5 of the string of shows.
Right. And you don't even have to get parking or need a miracle.
Right. It's right. Brought to you right in your own comfort of your own home.
That's anyway, you have to make your own veggie burrito.
We can handle that.
Okay.
So, and our guest tonight is Munroe Lehrman. There he is, folks.
Thank you.
It feels like just yesterday. I mean, I'm looking at you. You've got the same window behind you.
It really does, eh?
Right? And I feel like, oh, he was just on yesterday. How could it be a whole year,
Yes, we were just saying how we didn't expect to be in the same place a year from last year. Right.
I really did. I thought I would be live in the studio again in Israel, like it was my first time.
Yeah, that's right. That's where you should be. Both of you. We should have been doing
exactly.
This. So hey,
we've all gotten too good at this Zooming.
Well, all those people listening that want to show their love, you can throw some shekels into the guitar case, and maybe we'll have 9 Days of Jerry from Eretz Yisrael next year. Pay for some tickets, people.
Halavai, pa. Just so you know, Steve, about me becoming one with the heat during the 9 Days of Jerry. That's going to be the biggest issue. Lorelai needs an air-conditioned hotel room. Lorelai needs Moscon, the kite. Okay.
It's hot, and it's going to stay hot, and you just got to walk slow and drink water. And what can I tell you? It takes a lot of energy.
We'll be doing it from the steps of the base of Mikdash, and we all know that when Mashiach comes, all of Israel will be air conditioned.
Oh, there you go. I like that.
That's how you'll know. That's how you'll know.
That alone is the reason that we should want Mashiach. If for nothing else, that alone should prove that we need Mashiach now.
Mashiach, we're schwitzing. Come on.
We're schwitzing, Gewalt. We're kvetching and schwitzing all the way to the base of Migdash. So Noah, what is the theme of your show this year? Talk to us about some of the feelings that you want to give over here this time around.
Well, you mentioned how it seemed like it's only a year since we were experiencing the 9 days, and as we all know, in some ways, it all is always one big day. So I'm always feeling kind of connected, again, back to all those times that I've shared this Jerry material with you, but of course, all the time that I've experienced Jerry, both as a fan, and luckily, thank God, I've been able to do that as a musician now. Since I was a kid, the Grateful Dead have been a tremendous part of my life growing up, and Jerry's performance and his music gave so much to me and my development, and now I'm hoping to try to give that back out to the crowds when I play, and I'm trying to take you guys a little bit on how that journey developed through me, how I first got into Jerry's music and Jerry's world, and how that shaped me as a musician, and a little bit of how I'm trying to kind of pay it back. I know earlier you had the show with Shalom Agi talking about Jerry as an interpreter, and certainly he taught me so much, and now hopefully I'm trying to interpret a little bit of his legacy and his tradition moving on forward. And of course, that's to me a lot of what the Grateful Dead really is about. We all know the story about how they got their name by, looking through a dictionary and finding, a term for an old folk ballad, where, they'd find a body, a stranger would find a body and would bury it, and then would come across a great fortune as a reward. But to me, I always thought, the Grateful Dead were those musicians in the past who were so glad that we were keeping their music alive. And that's what Jerry did for a lot of great American music and other, as you've talked about. And now hopefully that's what, another generation of musicians are doing, including the musicians who are playing with a lot of Jerry's former bandmates and the other Dead members. So kind of when we get to what I'm doing, I'm going to kind of focus on work I've done with people who shook the hand, so to speak, playing with musicians who played with members of the Dead. And, and I was a little too young to get to too many, or my fellow musicians were a little too young to get to Jerry, but I was lucky enough very early in my career to play with Babatunde Olatunji, the amazing percussionist, who of course was a great friend of Mickey and did play with the Dead. So that was my shaking of a hand that shook Jerry's hand.
There you go.
But it's been a great connection, and I hope to move it on. The tradition tells us that when we give over, the teaching of a rabbi in a rabbi's names, that his lips are moving in the grave. So hopefully, when we continue to play this music and these tunes, which have become the canon for a whole generation of musicians and a whole community and a whole style. Hopefully Jerry's fingers are moving right along with this as well.
Amen.
No. Did you see the Dead? Did you see the Dead?
I did see the Dead. In fact, when I was 13, I had 3 major transformative moments in my life. Of course, and in some ways, I guess, one led to another. Of course, I was 13. It was my bar mitzvah. I was called to the Torah. Then, when I was 13, I took that ar mitzvah money and I bought my first drum set. Good. And then the summer when I was 13, I'd grown up, a little precocious child, maybe kind of like a lot of deadheads, maybe didn't always kind of fit in with, what was the norm, and, as a kid. And in the summers, I went to kind of this program called CTY, which is kind of a program for gifted kids, but also kids who are very bright, but also, on their own path, as I think a lot of deadheads can relate to. And this was a program that took place, it was an academic program, took place on different college campuses all over the country, and including one at Skidmore College, which some of you may know is in Saratoga Springs, New York. So I was a young 13-year-old, amongst the youngest in the whole group, and was up there. And this was the first time I really found my own people and my own tribe. And I was hanging out with a bunch of older kids, and they introduced me to a lot of music. I was taking astrophysics, and we snuck back into the classroom one night after we had gone out into town, and we got a video cassette, actually, of Pink Floyd's The Wall, and we watched The Wall as a 13-year-old, and it blew my mind. It was crazy. But then at the end of camp, they told me, hey, there's this band in town. There's the Saratoga Performing Arts Center that's, we could walk to, let's all sneak out and go see this band. And I had no idea who this band was, but their name was the Grateful Dead. And I knew that their symbol was a skull. So to me, I'm like, all right, I'm going to my first death metal concert.
Right, there you go.
But we all snuck out, and on the way, our resident advisor caught us. Again, these are 13, 16-year-old kids, and he catches us. We figure our whole adventure is done before it started, and he just looks at us and he says, "Bring me back a T-shirt." And he turned the other way. We went out. We made it down to Saratoga, to Performing Arts Center, SPAC, which is an amazing venue. I hope a lot of you guys out there have been to. I was lucky enough to see a lot of people there over the years. But I walk in and I encounter the lot scene, and I've never seen anything like this. I was 13. I had no idea what's going on. I see there's this guy walking around with like a vendor tray, like a cigarette girl, going like bagels, cream cheese, doses. And I have no idea what he's talking about. No idea what's going on. Seems like everyone, it seemed like it was a philately convention, because a lot of stamp collectors were all seemed to be trading stamps, and they must have been sending letters because they were licking the stamps too. I don't even know what was going on there. And I remember the confusion. We make it in, we make it to our seats. Again, I'm 13. I had no part of this. I had no idea what was going on. I remember guys are walking by, giving out stickers before the show, and just comes up and puts a sticker on you, and it was the Spartan Knight from the middle of an American Express card. And to this day, I have no idea, what's going on. But this is the world that I walked into. And then, I sit down, finally, it's beautiful Saratoga, it's daylight, so the lights didn't go down, but the band came on the stage. And then, for the first time in my life, I hear the following. And I think, Lorelai, if you can do that first link there, you will experience what I experienced as a 13-year-old.
All right. Thank you for setting the stage. Hold on.
Good evening. Please welcome back to Saratoga, the Grateful Dead.
I was drinking last night with a biker, and I showed him a picture of you. I said, pal, get to know her, you'll like her. Seemed like the least I could do, 'cause when he's charging his chopper up and down your carpeted halls, you will think me by contrast quite proper. Never mind how I stumble and fall. Never mind how I stumble and fall. You imagine me sipping champagne from your boot for a taste of your elegant pride. I may be going to hell in a bucket, babe, but at least I'm enjoying the ride. At least I'm enjoying the ride. Yeah, at least I'm enjoying the ride. Yeah. Oh, this sweet little sucker pretender, somehow baby got hard as it gets. With your black leather clothes box suspenders, your chair and your whip and your pets. Well, we know you're the reincarnation of the ravenous Catherine the Great. We know how you love your ovations and the Z-red scenes he create. Yeah, Z-red scenes he create. You imagine me sipping champagne from your boot for a taste of your elegant pride. Or maybe going to hell in a bucket, babe, but at least I'm enjoying the ride. At least I'm enjoying the ride. Yeah, at least I'm enjoying the ride. You analyze me, attempt to despise me, and you laugh when I stumble and fall. And make on a date, I will dance on your grave. If unable to dance, I'll crawl across it. Unable to dance, I will crawl. Hey, unable to dance, I'll crawl. Yeah. consider the circus, well, it just might be your kind of zoo. I can't think of a place that's more perfect for a person as perfect as you. And it's not like I'm leaving you alone, 'cause I wouldn't know where to begin. But I know that you'll think of me only when the snakes come marching in. Yeah, when the snakes come marching in. You're not me sipping champagne from your booth for a taste of your elegant pie. You be going to hell in a bucket, babe, but at least I'm enjoying the ride. At least I'm enjoying the ride. Ride, ride, ride. At least I'm enjoying the ride. Ride, ride, ride. At least I'm enjoying the ride. Ride, ride, ride. At least I'm enjoying the ride. Ride, ride, ride. At least I'm enjoying the ride. Ride, ride, ride. At least I'm enjoying the ride. Ride, ride, ride. At least I'm enjoying the 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 ride. Enjoy the ride. At least I'm enjoying 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 the ride. Yeah. At least I'm enjoying the ride.
Thank you, Lorelai. You can cut it.
What a great introduction to the Grateful Dead.
Right? Seriously. We came in hot.
Yeah, really. Okay, we got some internet, some buffering issues here. Whose internet is low?
Noah, can you hear us? I think Noah's a little frozen.
Yeah. Noah, you gotta, if you can hear us, you gotta
I
refresh.
can hear you guys. Can you?
No, you're not streaming. Like you're getting a red. You're getting
By
red
default.
internet. Your internet connection is not
It's
good.
live on the radio. It's live, Radio Free Nachlaot on Zoom, meaning that
Yes.
there's going to be at least one person who's having issues, and it's our special guest, Noah Munroe Lehrman, live from his undisclosed location. There he is. Do you
No,
hear
you
us?
may want to refresh your screen or come out and come back
Wait.
in.
He wants to come in on this side. Let's see what happens here. Okay. Hello. We can't hear you. Should you turn off your other self? Noah, unmute yourself on this device. There you go.
There we go.
There we go.
Before that happened, I was about to say, actually, you know, if it happens again, a wise man once told me, if anything goes wrong, just push play. Just go to the next link. And I'll share the stories when I get back.
Okay.
Sorry
All
about
right.
that.
So anyway, so that was a great opening song to introduce yourself to the Grateful Dead. Wow.
It really was. And you know, some people may say it's odd, it's a Jerry tribute, and my first song was a Bobby song, you would think. But for me, one of the things I always loved about Jerry is not only was he so amazing at interpreting, the classics that, like Maggie told about, he was so great at interpreting Barlow Weir. Some of my favorite Jerry lines and Jerry licks actually come from music that wasn't written by him, was written by his bandmates. I think last time I was on, I played the Weather Report suite, from June 24th, 1974 at Boston Garden, which I think I told you at the time is literally my favorite recorded music on the planet, when it comes down to it. And what's so amazing about that is Jerry's interpretation of it. And as a musician, I often find that, when you're interpreting someone else's music, it takes things to, it's great to a whole other level. It's greater than the sum of its parts. So, I think in many ways that was a kind of a very fitting introduction to Jerry. And of course, his licks are just so scorching. His guitar is so scorching throughout that.
In some of the interviews with Jerry, he points out that he's really, he didn't consider himself a solo artist. He considered himself a collaborator. He worked with the band.
Absolutely.
Even with his own band, he worked with other musicians. And we were talking about this last night, when he didn't have to sing the song, when he was just playing the song, it wasn't his song, so to speak. It was someone else's song. He was just playing. He got to do whatever he wanted to do. He wasn't critical to the song. Bobby kept the melody going. The song kept the structure of that music going, and he could just play with it. And some of his Looks Like Rain, some of his most tremendous licks come through some of those songs. So anyway, Jerry is Jerry, whether he's playing with Bobby or Bobby's playing with Jerry. It doesn't matter.
I've seen it. But just so you know, for the sake of time, I got it there. But it went on to be an amazing Bertha. And that Bertha is a great vocal introduction to Jerry at the time, too. And then later there was there's just so much beautiful stuff in that show. Scarlet Fire blew me away. The Not Fade Away with the clapping that carried all, there was the closer and the clapping carried all the way through the break before the encore and came back. It was just such an experience. As a kid, I was just blown away. Just blown away.
13 years old, huh? And that was 88. So you must have seen them a few times after that.
I did see them a few times after that. It was 88. So I was able to catch Brent, which of course was a big thing, to be able to say at my age at the time. And, of course, again, still, I was a 13-year-old kid and I was able to pull that off because I was away at summer program. But obviously, some of the opportunities to see Jerry weren't so ripe for me as a nice Jewish boy from the Upper East Side as a 13-year-old. But certainly by the time I got to high school, I was able to get out the shows. But even before then, I was able to do what was in vogue at the time, and it's something which I think you and Lorelai will remember, but maybe some of our younger viewers might be a little confused about. I had these. Do you guys know what these are?
Yes, of course.
These are cassette tapes. Yes, and for those youngsters out there who don't remember, I got to be one of the last generations who in high school and then in college, got really into tape trading. We would invest in equipment so we could get the best sound we can. We would find friends all over through shows, through the mail, because in those days the internet came in the mail, as we like to say.
That was the mail, the internet.
Exactly.
It was the mail.
Exactly. I remember the first time in high school I ever got to take the car. Again, I grew up in Manhattan, so cars were not, you took driver's ed in the middle of Manhattan. The first time ever in your life you drove was in the middle of like East 89th Street, which right in front of my high school. And I'm gonna have a story about that again in a little bit. But the first, and then you're like dodging garbage trucks. It's crazy. But after you get your license, you don't really get a chance to drive very much. But the first time I was able to take the car out, me and my high school friend, we drove out to Rockville Center on Long Island from the city to a place called Prime Cuts, which was a head shop where you would go, and if you bought cassettes, they would dub shows onto them for you and give them out to you. And so we would, I traded, I would collect them. And of course, this whole time we'd be accumulating all those Maxell points for all those
sure.
who remember collecting the Maxell points. So I have here, and that's why to this day, I still have to have a used car that has a cassette deck in which is getting harder and harder to find. So my current one lasts for a while because that's the only place really left to play them. But this is one of my tapes from back in the day that I used to love. And I don't know if you can see, this is the Capitol Theater in Port Chester, 6/19/76. And, this was the time where, in high school, I got to go back, from my generation and kind of fill in some of the past. And really, of course, like everyone fell in love with periods in the 70s. I think I told you before, my favorite, era ever was 74, where my recording ever was 74. Which some people may think is an odd choice for me, because, I'm a drummer percussionist who makes a living often being, kind of the Mickey role in Grateful Dead tributes. But 74, of course, was a year that it was just Billy.
He had to do it all. He had to do it all.
He had to do it all. And I love, obviously Mickey, and he was very formative in my life. One summer when I was taking German school classes in Middlebury College, and I spent all my free time kind of in the library reading Drumming on the Edge of Magic and Planet Drum, which are Mickey's amazing books and autobiographies, are highly recommended. But in 74 with Billy, just in that airy light space is great. And also maybe that's all part of the reason, because it's like that. Most Dead I hear, like I want to play along, but when it's just him, like I just want to sit back and listen. So that was amazing. I played that 74 stuff for you last time I was here. So now let's take a listen to one of my favorite tapes.
All right,
which
one?
Is that Cap Theater show. But I'll just bear in mind, the Cap Theater is going to come back in the conversation a little later too.
Okay, so which of these links am I going to be clicking on?
This is the one that says Cap, and
okay.
Yeah, and I'm going to see.
Right.
I just want to say one thing before you play it. I'm not saying the name of the song because one of the great things that we used to like to do was call the song. And there's a little low background noise, which should give you a hint. So let's see how quickly you can call the song.
All right, so it's interesting, when I click on the link you send me, it comes up already 34 minutes into the...
That is correct.
All right, well then it's working. Baruch Hashem. Okay, hold on, folks.
Stay. looks like the old man's getting old. Come on down, Shaggy, Bigfoot County. Snow so hard that the roof caved in. Lila Jones went to meet her God, and the old man never was the same again. Daddy made whiskey and he made away. Cost $2 and it burned like hell. I cut hickory just to buy the steel. Drink down a bottle of your river. Brown-eyed women in red grenadine. Bottle was dusty, but the liquor was clean. Sound of the thunder with the rain pouring down, and it looks like the old man getting old. Gone are the days when the ox fall down, take up the yoke and plow the fields around. Gone are the days when the ladies said please, Jenny Jack Jones, won't you come to me? Brown-eyed women in red grenadine. The bottle was dusty, but the liquor was clean. Sound of the thunder with the rain pouring down, and it looks like the old man getting old. And it looks like the old man's getting old.
Great, thanks.
Such a great song.
You got it now.
Come on, Lorelai. There you go.
Such
There
a
we
great,
go.
a great version. It's a great era.
That was 76, right? Those were
76.
that was when they came back from their year off.
Yes, that
And,
yeah.
and I remember that the tickets were made available through the mailing list. So if you look at, I think it's the Live Dead album, not Live Dead, the Grateful Dead live album, Skull and Roses. Either that or on Europe 72. Somewhere there's like on the album cover, there's a little, to join the Grateful Dead fan club, there's an address.
Right.
And in 76, when they came back out, at least on the East Coast, the only way tickets were being sold was if you were part of the fan club, you got a letter allowing you to go buy tickets. So I remember standing outside the Beacon 2 nights in a row waiting to get in. I couldn't get in. And then, of course, the tape circulated, so we heard the shows. Anyway, Grateful
They
Dead.
tried, this whole thing about that fairly well, and it's the only time we're ever going to play again, and make special envelopes and send us, like they tried that whole like insider thing again. We fell for it all over again. My friend Amy in New York and I spent millions of hours. Amy decorated the hell out of envelopes, like to the uttermost. We still did. We only got tickets for one night in Santa Clara, not Charlotte. The other nights.
See that?
And we didn't get Chicago at all, despite our intense artwork and being on the inside.
It's good. Even in 76, was it like that? You wouldn't.
No, I'm talking about the Fairly Well tours.
No, I know that. But I mean,
in 76,
it work?
No, it's the thing about being on the, join here for the Grateful Dead fan club and be able to get in tickets when nobody else can get it. That didn't work.
Because but you see, in 76, you couldn't go to Ticketron and get tickets for those shows. They weren't being sold. You had to communicate through, this letter that you got from the fan club.
Even when I was in high school, again, all these fan clubs, these addresses, kids, these are physical addresses people are talking about, not the internet. And as you say, there was no Ticketmaster like that. Even in the 90s, like, or in the 80s and 90s, you know, you would have to go down to a local outlet at a record store or whatever, often to buy it, or to the box office. And we used to get bracelets, you know, the day before, and then we'd come back like in the middle of the night and line up early and try to get things. I remember it was a big thing. We had a lot of hippies on my high school lacrosse team, and we always had games like on the days in between when they'd give out the bracelets for the shows, and when you have to line up the next day. So we always had to make it through the game without having our paper bracelets. I have some from actually the fish shows or the trade shows I was at not too long ago. Where is that? There we go. Pop it in there. We'd have to get them to survive our whole lacrosse games. So we used to always see everyone with a big taped up wrist, and it wasn't because they had injured their wrist. It was because they needed to get Grateful Dead tickets the next day, and they couldn't get the signature off.
There you go. There you go.
Those are great days. And you know but you know, and that tape was one of the tapes that I wore through. It would have to, you know, it would spit itself out of my card deck, and I have to spool it back with the pencil, you know, many a time. And you know, that's kind of what really got me into the kind of mythopoetic nature of the Hunter Garcia songwriting experience. Because as much as I said I love Jerry's interpretations of Barlow Weir, I mean, obviously, you know, Hunter, you know, Robert Hunter, you know, gave, you know, the Dead wouldn't be obviously the Dead without Robert Hunter, and you know, a whole generation that, you know, has been inspired so deeply not only by the Dead's music but by his lyrics. And you know, that whole tradition of kind of like Americana storytelling, you know, as a nice Jewish boy from the Upper East Side, I would go driving in the countryside listening to the Dead, and I would feel what, you know, all of America for the last, you know, 2 centuries at Appalachia just coming up and filling me. Yeah, it's amazing stuff.
That's funny.
Yeah.
Appalachia filling you, huh? That would scare me a little bit.
I mean, well, that's the thing, you know, you look into, and I don't know if we can get there a little bit, you know, but you know, you look into his vision of America and the bittersweet nature, and you know, very much, you know, the working man's, you know, aspirations and the quest to find, you know, holiness and beauty in the mundane and the everyday. And you know, like that quest to find holiness and beauty in the mundane everyday, that's what we're doing as Jews too, right? Not just as
that's life. That's life if you're conscious, you know.
Absolutely.
If you're unconscious, then maybe you just float through wherever, you know, mechanism of floating, you know, you find, you know, work or sitcoms or, you know, but if you're conscious, then you have to understand that you got to elevate everything, because bad, good, it's all relative. That is just really how we deal with it. Yeah. And you know what? We had to deal with Jerry's death also. And that, you know, because death is part of life.
Like that.
And he died. And a lot of us were very angry that he didn't take care of himself, you know, that he was very selfish and he didn't take care of himself. And he's now deprived us of all of that light. On the other hand, he's off. Maybe he's better. Maybe, you know, physically he's better. Who knows? Anyway.
I have Jerry's death stories I want to share, but just before we leave the Robert Hunter thing, you know, I just want to say, you know, I think for a generation who maybe grew up in America in a secular context, maybe disconnected with, you know, our Jewish tradition, to find those sparks of light wherever they may be hidden in this world. You know, I think, you know, the Dead and Robert Hunter brought that, you know, to a lot of people's consciousness. And I think that connection, you know, sometimes really, you know, sometimes you can get some light in the strangest of places if you look at it right. And I think, you know, sometimes you can really see that connection. In fact, Lorelai, I think I sent you a picture of Robert Hunter.
I would like to share my screen right now, because that's a very, very important question. Which is, hold on a second. Which is, who wore it better? Hold on a second.
Exactly. Now,
whoa. Now that's pretty.
Here?
Yeah, that's pretty intense. Whoa.
Can you guys see this picture?
Yeah,
Can you see it?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay,
yeah, yeah,
well,
yeah.
that's pretty amazing, huh? Who wore it better?
That's what I always think. When I saw this picture of Robert Hunter, it blew me away. Of course. Steve, do you want to tell us who's who?
Well, it's obvious, right? It's Shlomo Carlebach and Robert Hunter. I mean, but,
It's Shlomo Carlebach on the left and Robert Hunter
yeah,
on the right.
yeah,
When I showed
it's
this to
it's
Lorelai,
obvious. It's obvious.
when I
It's
showed this
a
to
crazy
Lorelai,
picture.
I showed her just a picture of Robert Hunter and said, "Who is this?" And she's like, "I want to say Shlomo." But then again, I think there was that so much connection. And of course, as we know, the dead, so much of this magic was happening in the hate. And of course, the hate is it's where so many people, of all traditions, we're going and trying to find that connection. And of course, that's also where Shlomo went and started his house of love and prayer there, kind of in that same community. So, this ethos between what we're trying to do as Jews and what we're trying to do as deadheads has been there from really the beginning. And it's so beautiful that you guys specifically, Steve and Lorelai, are just keeping it alive for us in the Holy Land and Chutz La'aretz. I just want to thank you guys for giving such a platform for this kind of material.
Baruch Hashem. And people, if you're listening, you should contribute to our fundraiser and help us keep on keeping on.
Keep the lights on.
Keep the lights on for Radio Free Nachlaot. You can connect with our fundraiser on our Facebook page or on my personal page or on our website, radiofreenachlaot.com. You know how to find us.
So now, and of course, just as we're like Mesiras Nefesh for Torah, just as we're willing to put ourselves on the line, to stay up and stretch and go the distance and fast, and do whatever we need to do to, for Hashem and for Torah. We also used to be the same way when it came to getting to the Dead Show, as I'm sure a lot of you guys remember. And in fact, in 1992, when I was in high school, I think I mentioned a little earlier how dangerous the East 89th Street in front of my high school was, where I first learned to drive. And when I was a junior in high school, at the end of the year, we used to have this tradition where the seniors and the juniors would have a water fight in front of the school. And that year, of course, the seniors, they chose the date as part of the prank surprise. So they came armed, and I had to, as a junior, had to go run and get a little mini squirt gun. They had the super soakers. So we were doing our valiant best to fend them off in front, but I had to make, some darting moves across the, behind the sidewalk and over and try to dash around a parked car. And of course, just as a New York City taxi was running by and ran over my foot. And as a junior in high school, right? But of course, the school, I went to the school to the school's nurse while I could still walk. And of course, the school called my mom and they're like, your son's been hit by a car, please hold. Which is not the way
No.
to any school administrators listening. But I ended up, thank God, I was okay, but I ended up having to have a surgical debridement of my foot. It was, of course, Jews love talking about all their medical issues, so I hope you don't mind. But there was just one problem. The day I had my surgery, the Dead were playing at Giant Stadium.
No.
I go on crutches, go home, still a little groggy from the pain medicine, but considering it was a Dead show, I was probably doing better than most people. But me and my friend, we set off. Again, I live on the Upper East Side of Manhattan. We were high school kids in Manhattan. We don't have any cars, So on crutches, me and my friend take the subway, make it down to Port Authority, take the bus, which is all swarmed and full of deadheads, under the river, over to the Giant Stadium complex on crutches. You have to make it up over the big overpass over 95 there.
Oh my
The
God.
whole time, people are cheering me on, they're supporting me. I'm not, but they were partying like it was Moshe at the Yamsuf. It was an amazing experience. I got there and people were just congratulating me, and you could just feel the love. And of course, you were saying earlier, Steve, it felt like you're 5 days into a show run, and at this point I'm 5 days into a run, I'm feeling it. And I wake up in the morning, I sleep the wrong way, I'm not going anywhere for a week. But in those days, The Dead were playing. You got run over by a car and are on crutches.
That was
You're
like,
good.
never mind that. Never mind.
Yeah,
any
big
of those
deal, big
injuries.
deal, really.
Exactly. And of course, one of the reasons why you had to be at the show is because in those days you're probably chasing something and you wanted to catch it. And you know,
Which show? What was the date of that show? Which Giant Stadium show was that?
this was the 15th. This was
Of
June
July?
15th, 92.
June 15th, 92. Okay.
Okay. June 15th, 92. And of course, what I was chasing one particular song in that era more than any. And I make it to the show, and I go after going through all that, and then I was rewarded. If you see Lorelai, there's a link that has a little 92 at the end. If you see there, if you want to play that, you'll see what my broken foot had to endure, because I was dancing all the way through that show, even with that.
Absolutely. And I think we'll all have to dance a little bit coming up here. Okay.
Trucking rhymes, suggesting rhythm that will not forsake me till my tale is told enough. While the fire lights are low, strange shadows flame and grow till things we've never seen will seem familiar. Came through many fights, but lost at love. How the storyteller speaks, door in the fire creeps, suddenly flies open, and a girl is standing there. Eyes of light with glowing hair, all that fancy grace is fair. She takes her finger and throws it in the lion's den. Should you to gain me tell, risk uncertain pain for me, I will not shoot you if you will not take the chance. Sailor gave at least a try, soldier being much too wise. Strategy was a strength, not disaster. Sailor coming out again, the lady fairly left dead. That's how it stands today. You decide if he was wise. Storyteller makes no choice. Soon you will not hear his voice. His job is to shed light, not to master. He came to town, off and going, hopes he will come back, but he cannot go so. Inspiration
No drums. Oh man. Oh
I don't know what happened.
no. That was perfect. That was that was
Okay.
perfect. That was actually perfect. For me, you know, as a kid in the '90s going to a Grateful Dead show, it didn't really get much more epic than Terrapin in those days, and that era. And also, I guess you know, you can see I mentioned Terrapins, I mentioned Weather Report Suite. You can see some of my favorite Dead is you know, those pieces that have those really composed and structured parts, but then also, you know, open up to improvisation and interpretation. And you know, to me, you know, that's what's so exciting and energetic and living and vibrant. That creative kind of tension between form and flow, you know, which are the creative, binary oppositions that really kind of make the cognitive and spiritual and even physical space of the universe. You know, as a drummer myself, speaking of drums, you know, we take the left hand and the right hand and together we take sound and silence and somehow we make meaning out of those. And you know that's really what the Dead were masters of. And you know, again, that tension between that structure and that flow and that form, you know, like that's not just a comment on the Dead's music. You know, that's coming out of some of the deepest mystical traditions, you know, that we have as Jews in terms of Kabbalah, in terms of what's really kind of, you know, behind this.
Right.
And
you have to have a cleave for the light. Too much light without a vessel is gonna lead to some trouble.
Absolutely. It'll break those vessels. But also, you know, to me too, that concept, you know, I always whenever I come to talking about, you know, those Kabbalah in those areas, you know, I always trust everything you find there, you can find in the Gemara. Everything you find in the Gemara, you can find there. So to me too, that structure and that flow, it's like our tradition of having a written law and then a living, flowing oral law, you know, and you need both to come together. So you know, that's
Shlomo went to a Dead show. I forget which year.
Which one?
Yeah, I forget which year. It was at Madison Square Garden. There was someone who was touring with the Dead who was involved in some sort of a cult or whatever, and I guess people reached out to Shlomo to go and connect with this person. So he went to a Dead show. I remember coming out. I did not know he was at that particular show. I came out of the show. I was in the car going down 7th Avenue on the right-hand side of 7th Avenue. I saw him standing on the street corner, and I swung back around to try to go get him, but he was gone until I could go down and make a right, and go make a right, come back all the way down on the left side of the street, and he was gone. Anyway, someone asked him what he thought of the Grateful Dead. And I mean, it may not be exact quote, but basically what he said was that, you know, Yidden, there's light in the world, and what you just said, but there's light, but Jews, mamish, we have kalim, we have the vessels to contain the light, to work with the light. The Grateful Dead, they're light, but they don't have the vessels. And it can lead to trouble. It's like they had all this light, but they didn't really have the vessels. Now, in the Grateful Dead world and within their world, they did have their vessels. They had the vessels of the music, you know. But Shlomo was like reacting and maybe on from a different. Anyway, it doesn't. I don't have to explain Shlomo.
Of course, you know, a vessel is a kli, and of course, an instrument is also a kli. So
right.
they literally had their vessels there.
Right, but that's only in the physical space. But anyway,
but exactly, no. But I mean, but I think you bring up an important point, and you touch it in that, you know, there were many, you know, spiritual seekers who were obviously drawn to that light of the Dead, and even many coming from different perspectives. We know there were a lot of Jews and who were proud Jews there, and we know there were other religious groups that formed, you know, around there. I think you kind of alluded to. And I think we all remember the Spinners. Some of us were Spinners in there too. And of course, spinning is always a very holy concept. You know, that's how we take the dreidel, we spin it, and we take the four corners of duality and make them into a unified circle. You know, on Purim, you know, we spin the Eitz Chaim, we spin the Megillah to unravel it, and we reveal the hidden.
Our dear beloved Reb Moish, he should live and be well. Admir the Isrim in good health is a spinner, and he's one of the proto spinners. And everyone has their role, right? At a show.
Absolutely. So for me, the spinners in that whole area used to always, to me, was a great area of sanctuary. When you needed to be in a space that was just about receiving the music, you know, it was a great. It was, I think. In fact, I've been fortunate enough to speak about the connection between the Dead and Judaism. That's actually how I first met you, Lorelai, if you recall.
That's right. Blues for Challah.
Blues for Challah, the Grateful Dead festival there. I've also been lucky enough, some of my performances, to be interviewed by Relics magazine about music and the Dead at Elder Street Synagogue and elsewhere. And there's a lot of, and I actually have a piece coming up, not about the Dead and Judaism, but about fish and Judaism coming up in a volume from Penn State University Press on Torah and Torah, in a book called Rock and Roll Religion, Fish, Jews, and the People of the Helping Friendly book. So, in addition to within our own kind of, hippie religious Jew, or however you want to call this world, that there's been a lot of academic study too of the Dead and the spiritual communities that form around them. And I'll tell you just a quick story. When I was in college, one of my friends was a grad student, actually wrote her thesis about one of the groups that formed, that was the Church of Unlimited Devotion, which was one of the which is also the Grateful Dead lyric reference, but was one of kind of the groups that formed on tour. And she often talks about, she was an anthropology student getting her doctorate there, and she went and she obviously embedded and lived with that community and went on tour. And she was on tour and really lived the tour life. And at the same time, she knew that at her university, one of the sociology professors was leading a class field trip to one of the shows to examine it from a sociological perspective. And one day she's on tour, and she's really, she's up late, as you can imagine, and she ends up sleeping, it was summer tour, she ends up sleeping under a VW bus, as what happened to us people back in the day. And the next morning, all of a sudden the bus rolls away, and she's exposed and standing there. And it just so happens she saw her professor, and the sociology professor was there with his entire class, and turns and looks and sees them, and he turns to the class and he says, "See, class, this is the difference between sociologists and anthropologists." But yeah,
right on.
But that connection has been there, and it's been observed from so many perspectives there, including, very obviously, I don't know if you've checked your email, but I just sent you another still, Lorelai.
Another one, okay.
But,
Look.
Yeah, which if you, I don't know if you want to share it, which is actually a quote from Jerry, and kind of some of his observations about what was really going on at Dead shows and the phenomenon. You'll notice, obviously, my presentation has been so far very focused on the live experience and my own personalized experience. But
okay, hold on. I think I can do this. Right, we'll just do this really quick.
Here we go. And if you'll see this is what Jerry said. Said, "You need music. I don't know why. It's probably one of those Joe Campbell questions, why we need ritual. We need magic and bliss and power, myth and celebration and religion in our lives. And music is a good way to encapsulate a lot of it." And, again, for so many of us, no matter where we're coming from, I think, we found a lot of that at Dead shows. And it's given so much. As a Jew, obviously, we have our own vessels that we experience. But one of the things that I like to remember, as Jews, we're B'nai Israel, but we're also B'nai Noach, and I'm B'nai Noach. And in our own tradition, all the children of the world, they have their mitzvahs and their connection too. But our tradition really isn't really talking about. So we know what a Ben Noach, mitzvah is. But what's a Ben Noah ritual? What's a Ben Noach holiday? What's a spiritual celebration? And our tradition really didn't provide us with many of them. but I think in a large ways the Grateful Dead did. And as a Jew, to have a space where I could connect spiritually with people who I wouldn't normally be able to do that in, across, socioeconomic, across cultural, across all those lines, I think was really powerful and was something they gave so much to us. And that's something I got out of it. And I think that's Jerry very much knew that that's what he was given and they were given. Yeah. Oh man. So I know you wanted to give it to 90, but I'm gonna have to push it a little further because it's too much fun. So if you don't mind. I have a few more things, but so then, so far we've gotten up to me in high school with that show in 92. But then I was fortunate enough to go on and in 93 start university at college at Brown University in Providence, Rhode Island. And, I was very lucky that my first fall there in fall of 93, the Jerry Garcia band came into town and played there. And we're getting short on time, so I'm just going to tell the story. I went down with all my friends there, and it was in the day. It was the first, time in college. We got to go on a lot. So now we really had quite a time down there and went to the show. And of course, as soon as we walked in the door, we all dispersed and, just made our way through the crowd. And again, it was like a Taoist master kind of melting his way through. And, just all of a sudden at the key moments, we would just somehow manage to reunite right in front of Jerry on the floor and just look at each other like wide-eyed, like plates. Is completely blown away. And last time I was here, I played, an amazing Dear Prudence from that era for you. And I know Shula Magi played a much earlier Dear Prudence from that era. But that was one of the highlights of that show for me. So I won't play it for you again. But that CD that came out of that era Jerry band that came out on a double CD had that Dear Prudence. And also had an amazing Tangled Up in Blue cover from by, of course, the inimitable Bob Dylan. It's a long song. It's a 14-minute song. So I'm not necessarily going to play it for you now, but that disc really is what kind of introduced me to Jerry outside of just the Dead and some of his other contexts. And of course, in Jerry Band, that was largely a collaboration between him and Melvin Seals at the time. And Melvin Seals is going to come up later in the show. So I just wanted to put that in there. But so throughout college, in addition to exploring the Dead, I started exploring the other projects, including, speaking of religious allusions there, although he claims second cheek, the amazing Legion of Mary collaboration between the amazing Merle Saunders on keys and Jerry, who I was lucky enough to have tapes for. And also there was the amazing Keystones collection came out on CD, which is highly recommended. So I think we have It's All Right, Mama. If you see that link, come be up there.
I'm gonna play that.
Which is what my kind of next Jerry era.
Ain't no good for you. woman, she ain't no good for you, but that's alright. That's alright. That's alright now, mama. And that way you do. Right now, mama. And that way you do. Right now, mama. And that way you do.
That's got soul, man.
Love that.
Beautiful. Yeah. So obviously there we were looking at a picture of a 70s era Jerry, but
That was my Jerry, my OG Jerry, my original, you know. I first saw the Dead in 1976 live, but I started getting into them in 1975. When I first saw Jerry, that's what he looked like.
that's when I started getting into the world. Oh, that's crazy. So yeah, so we saw him, and of course, as I said before, especially when I was in college, that's the era that I was most attracted to. But as you saw from the '92 video, by the time I was actually listening to this music, Jerry had moved onto the Papa Jerry phase. Or
Jerry was
Uncle
hard
Jerry.
on his body. Jerry was hard on
Zadie
his
Jerry,
body.
Grandpa Jerry.
Zadie, right. God, Halavai,
Halavai. I mean, it's hard to think about actually how young he was when he was looking
so young.
that. I mean,
was
that's
so
what people
young.
don't really wrap their heads around.
I'm 10 years older than he was when he died. Me, right
That's
now,
good.
I'm 10 years older than when he died.
That's crazy.
Okay, so
That's crazy. But but at that time, that was the image we grew up with, and that for my generation, that was the live Jerry, and that's what we had, and that's what we
Right.
went for. And at the same time, I went to my first Jerry band show in the fall of '93. Jerry, speaking of explore, and I started exploring other Jerry projects besides the Dead. Jerry came out with a studio album with David Grisman by the name of Not for Kids Only.
right.
Which was an album of kid songs that he and Jerry did. Which,
Right, and we did that.
The,
We did one yesterday, I think. Yeah, Jenny Jenkins, I think we did.
oh, you did? That's what I was gonna play from that thing.
Yeah,
So I knew I
that was in Lee. Wait, was it in Lee's or was it the day before? Was it Shoal did that one? I don't know. I'm lost.
I mean, that I knew I should have picked the Elizabeth Cotton Freight Train from that album.
Okay.
Or I should have picked Hello Stranger, where you get to hear Jerry and Dave Grisman tell jokes to each other.
Oh,
for
that's
that.
okay.
That is, but since you've heard it, anyway, that album ended up becoming a great, one of my favorite albums. Even though I was a college kid, he treated, we were all Jerry's kids in those days,
Right.
and we really felt like Jerry's kids, and it worked. So good. So since you played that the other day, I actually was skipping this one, but we'll go back. Before that album, the Garcia Grisman, Not for Kids Only, was the eponymous Garcia Grisman album, which among other things, which was obviously maybe taking a more serious tone than Not for Kids Only, but really produced some amazing music, including Jerry's and David's cover of Russian Lullaby, which is a tune Jerry had been covering for a long time, but the jazz, I think, really came out when he did it with Grisman. And we'll listen to that in a moment. But of course, one of the other things that collaboration did for me, a lot of people, is it introduced us to David Grisman, who introduced a lot of kids later to Andy Statman, when David Grisman and Andy Statman came out with the Songs of Our Father album a couple of years later, which I think brought a lot of secular Jews who were listening to all this music, back to hearing a lot of some Niganim and really the songs of our Avot and Imaot for the first time. So again, the band brought us to so many places physically when we were on tour. Certainly, emotionally, throughout all their music, but even culturally, even far beyond what they would expect. And just like you never knew, strangers helping strangers, you never knew where that would lead at shows and life and musically. So very quickly, let's listen to that Russian lullaby.
All right.
No one played that yet on the shows, did they?
What?
No one played this version yet on your 9 days, did they? All right. That album cover just brings back memories.
Every night, hear her croon Russian lullaby. Just a plain little tune. Baby starts to cry. Rock-a-bye, my baby. Somewhere there may be a land that's free for you and me, and a Russian lullaby. Every night you hear her croon a Russian lullaby. Just a plain little tune. Baby starts to cry. Rock-a-bye, my baby. Somewhere there may be a land that's free for you and me, and a Russian lullaby. A land that's free for you and me, and a Russian lullaby.
It used to feel so classy when we would listen to that.
Irving
sophisticated.
Berlin never sounded better.
Say that again?
Yeah. I said Irving Berlin never sounded better.
Absolutely,
You know? It's like,
absolutely.
you know?
Absolutely. Another fine yes. We got out of the mix. So then, of course, by this point, I'm in college, and of course, I was in college. I think I mentioned a little while ago. In the summer of '95, I was taking German classes in Middlebury, Vermont. One day, I was talking to friends about, what our plans were for fall tour and tickets on the phone. Hang up the phone. A couple, 5-10 minutes later, rings again, and this was back in the day when you had like a phone on the hall because you didn't have cell phones yet, and they call you, and I went over, and my friend just tells me he's gone, which it was the day that Jerry died, and I had one other deadhead friend who was in German school. I just got off the phone, walked over to his whiteboard. I wrote "Er ist gegangen," which is "he's gone" in German, and just walked outside. It was Vermont, so there were all these beautiful, like, wild grain wheat grass fields surrounding the area. And I just walked out into the field, and I just put on a show, and I just stamped out "Thank you, Jerry" in the wheat, and that was my tribute to Jerry. And then later, when I got my first car of my own, "Thank you, Jerry" was the one and only bumper sticker on the back. And I remember, obviously this is '95. Right before then, we had that bit of a tumultuous summer tour in '95. Ending at Soldier Field, which it's, those of us who remember recall, things got a little hairy there. But and in the late '90s, a lot of people, I've already played some stuff from the late '90s. A lot of people have various opinions on the music that was going on at that era. But of course, as we all know, there were still really magic moments going on, including and I'm not sure we have time for this now, but I just want to talk about it. Is very famously one thing, Jerry in the final show played Black Muddy River, and me and all my friends were totally convinced that if you go back and you listen to that version, there's one time where he says, "I will walk alone down the last muddy river." So we were all convinced that that was Jerry's way of telling us and on saying goodbye. So, it's hard to believe how long ago that was, and when my physical journey of going to see Jerry live, ended. But of course, Jerry's always with us, and his music is always with us, and now more than ever, thanks to the technology. But I'm also really lucky in that for me, that also kind of really just marked, kind of a different phase in my relationship to Jerry, and Jerry and the music of the Dead very much is like a Masora, it's the tradition we receive, then part of the link of that music, which again goes back to those American roots that I'm sure Saul was talking about, and that we talked about a little bit today, and even further back, I'm pretty sure if you went back far enough, you could find some of that, Masora leading all the way back to the Beis Hamikdash. And of course, Dead shows were the Beis Hamikdash that we had in our generation, Lahavdil.
So I'll tell you something, which I may never have mentioned before. The person who told me, I was at work, the person who told me that Jerry died, actually, it's the same person, a good friend of ours, who told me that Shlomo had died. Okay, however, ever months earlier. And I was at work, I was totally in shock. A bunch of my friends were gathered out on Long Beach, Long Island to go to an Allman Brothers show, and I had to swing by there on the way home. And of course, they were totally in shock. As a matter of fact, the Allman Brothers and Warren Haynes is in his song Patchwork Quilt refers to that night at Jones Beach as one of the lyrics of the song, because they took the stage and they did a show. I was there for a little while. I went home. I sat down on my piano. I must have played I Know Your Rider at the piano for about 45 minutes or so. And just I was saying goodbye. And then I tried to call our friend Reb Moish in Israel, Now, there were no cell phones, but I did have a number for him, and I was trying to call him, and I
Hmm.
couldn't reach him, and I couldn't reach him. And I finally got someone to leave a message because I wanted to make sure he knew what was going on. Well, he heard about it, but where was he? They finally were having an unveiling for Shlomo on Har HaMenuchot, where
Oh my
Shlomo was
God.
buried. So the reason
Wow.
why I couldn't reach him was because he and for some reason they had pushed it off because Shlomo died the previous it was a Cheshvan, right? So they
It was like
pushed it off.
Crawlback time.
Right, they pushed it off to that date, and that's why nobody could reach him because he was Mamish just unveiling for Shlomo.
That's the craziest story ever. That's the
Yeah,
most
he talked-
moist story ever.
Right, and I wish he was here to tell it, but I'm telling it in his name because Gaval, right? And then he called me back like the next day, says, "You're trying to reach me." I heard. He knew. He knew. Anyway.
Yeah, it's so funny to think about days before cell phones. Like I think about the people that when I heard about it, I was dialing immediately some closest dead related loved ones on their landlines,
Right. Well, I tell you something. Shlomo died in the nick of time. 'Cause anybody who knows Shlomo and knew and was with him, if wherever he went, he would walk into an apartment to do a learning. The first thing he would say is, "Where's the phone?" And he would make X number of minutes of phone calls.
There would
He
be
was
no
all-
end to it.
And then by his shiva, people would come and say, he called me every Friday because he knew I was like my wife was sick. I mean, so it wasn't like just random stuff. But meanwhile, Gevalt, finally you'd pull him away from the phone, and he'd sit down, and after he said hello to everybody in the room, he'd sit down and sing or play whatever and give Torah. But can you imagine if there were cell phones? We never would have had him,
Never.
That's
never,
good.
never.
It would have been over,
Well,
But it's apt you should bring up that connection because at that year really we had the same transition kind of in both realms again, like both with the dead and with Shlomo's Masorah. We went from being kind of the last link in the chain of everything that came before to now we became the first link in the chain that we have to have continue on after us, and you guys are certainly keeping that alive, and hopefully after that point, that's the point where I started, went from just being a Dead fan, of course always obviously playing the Dead as I've been playing music since that bar mitzvah drum set 13, but that point in the 90s is kind of the point where I started my own musical journey as an interpreter of the Dead, and I was very lucky to be able to do that at the time at an amazing venue in the city called the Wetlands, which was kind of a spiritual home for the Dead community. The Tuesday Night Dead Center, as a high school kid, was a free night I would sneak into every time, and of course at that point in time it had been rescued literally by actually a guy who was actually a high school classmate of mine named Peter Shapiro, who took over the Wetlands.
I'm like, Peter Shapiro, never.
And talk about people who at that age was the next generation who took it upon themselves to be the one who was going to get out there and give future generations their opportunity to hear this music and see where it goes and develops. He did so much. First, then obviously he made the Fare Thee Well event, which was incredible. He even got that rainbow out there. And then years later, he gave me an amazing, one of my first breaks into the scene. Years later, he of course bought that Capitol Theater, which had been defunct, that we listened to Jerry playing in so long ago, and brought that back to life. And it's now one of the most gorgeous venues, and is Phil's home on the East Coast, as I'm sure if you know. And he even opened up Garcia's as a second performance space in the venue, where I have been lucky enough, hopefully, to be part of this generation of musicians who are trying to keep kind of that music alive. So now I want to play with you kind of some of those tunes. And again,
are we going to play Black Muddy River?
Do we? Yeah, we're getting really short on time. So if you're going to let me go over time, we can totally do that Black Muddy River. Otherwise, I was going to save that for the end to give Jerry the last word.
Okay, so what are we playing next?
What are we playing next? So before I get to the Garcia codes, I want to say, first of all, very briefly, back in that Cap Theater show, that was during the Donna era, where we heard Donna giving her what always to me were her amazing, backing vocals that I always appreciated. And you'll hear again a lot of my music. We have a lot of harmony, three-part harmony, including we have a lot of female singers in there. Of course, Donna was very controversial amongst Deadheads. A lot of Deadheads gave Donna a lot of criticism, and I just want to point out, I think if there was more than maybe just a hint of misogyny in some of the criticism that Donna got there. But of course, although I know some people just wanted to hear their Jerry and didn't want to hear anyone sing over for them. But in any case, I think regardless of that,
a lot of people wanted to hear people singing on tune.
That's true too. As Laura,
that goes for Phil too. Like, not to name names, but all the kvetching about Donna, I've never heard a female Deadhead kvetch about her, but it does come from a lot of the men. And then we can go back to Pigpen was a vocalist and Jerry was a vocalist. Let Phil sing. There are things that happen along the way, but anyway, never mind. Keep going.
Look, I think Linda McCartney, Yoko Ono, and Diana Jean Godshall should have made a trio.
Oh, listen to them. Oh.
Well, see, I think Lorelai, Steve, you're proving my point that I want to say here, which is we all know, and the Dead told us, man, the women are smarter, man. You got to hear. So many years later, not many years later, just a couple of years ago now, I was lucky enough to join up with an amazing group, which is called Gratefully Yours, which is led by Alex Mazzora, the amazing keyboardist of a band called the Deadbeats. So I was lucky enough to see at that Grateful Dead night in high school, many a night at the Wetlands in New York City. And on drums, in addition to me, in that group, we were lucky enough to have Vinny Amico from a band called Mo, some of you might know, who a couple of years ago served as Phil's band. So, he's played with Phil, played with Jerry, and now you'll hear him and me play together. And this is from that project I mentioned to you earlier, which is called Friends of Friends, which is, me shaking the hand that shake the hand. And this also includes one of my favorite Grateful Dead tribute guitarists now, the amazing Adam Kozlowski, who you'll hear his tone on this, to me has been unrivaled. So if you see that one that says women, that's one. And this is from a festival called the Froggy Days Music Festival that takes place in Narrowsburg, New York, just a very short distance from Yasgur's Farm in Bethel. And as of now, it'll be happening again on September 17th through 19th of this year. Of course, we're all keeping an eye on what the situation is. And let me just please say to anyone out there who's going to any live music these days, please get vaccinated if you're not vaccinated. And please, when you can't socially distance, please wear your masks. It's a great thing to do for yourself, for your loved ones, for your neighbors, and for musicians out there who want to keep playing live music for y'all. So hopefully I'll see you at Froggy Days, but you can see some of Froggy Days right now with Gratefully Yours, Munroe Lehrman, and Vinny Amico from Mo.
People that say, and I'll leave the women astray. And I say to the women today, it's smarter than men in every way. That's right, women are smarter. That's right, women are smarter. That's right, women are smarter. Say women are smarter. That's right. Singing like I do what the big boys do. Dance that down and you try to take me. It's the people that say, and I'll leave the women astray. And I say, the women today are smarter than men in every way. That's right, the women are smarter. That's right, the women are smarter. That's right, the women are smarter. Women are smarter. That's right. Come on. That's right, the women are smarter. That's right, the women are smarter, that's right. The women are smarter. Women are smarter, that's right. That's right. The women are smarter, that's right. The women are smarter. Say women are smarter, that's right. say women are smaller, that's right. That's right, the women are smaller. That's right, the women are smaller. That's right, the women are smaller. Say women are smaller, that's right. That's right, the women are smaller. That's right, the women are smaller. That's right, the women are smaller. Women are smaller, that's right. That's right, the women are smaller. That's right, the women are smaller. That's right. Believe it all, smarter, that's right. Believe it all, smarter, that's right. Believe it all, smarter, believe it all, smarter. Hey, that's right. Believe it all, smarter, that's right. Believe it all, smarter, that's right. Believe it all, smarter, believe it all, smarter, that's right.
Wow.
That was a fun night.
Yeah. And now, what's the name of the guitar player?
His name is Adam Kozlowski. He will say the Polish last name much better than I do.
And who
But-
does he play with otherwise? When he's not playing with you guys?
Well, his main act has been Gratefully Yours, but he was actually runner up for Dark Star guitarist, 2 guitarists to go for Dark Star, and to me was he's just a really amazing guy. He's a great musician, and again, his tone there is just so incredible. I mean,
Yeah,
It-
he
it-
nailed it. He nailed it. He did a good job.
he
Very
nailed it.
nice.
He nailed it. Now again, I've been lucky enough to play with a lot of guitarists, and who are great. I love him. I just mentioned Dark Star in passing, actually. As I think I told you guys last year, right before the pandemic hit, one of my last great Dead shows that I did. Actually, my last show I did was with Alex in another band called Skeleton Keys, which is a great project, which is based on the premise of 2 keyboardists and no guitar doing Grateful Dead music, and it's always Alex and a rotating guest guitarist. And actually, I wanted to play a track from Garcia's at the Capitol Theater of the Skeleton Keys with Alex and with Steve Molitz, who played in Phil and Friends, and also in the amazing LA band called Particle, for you. But we're a little short on time, so I don't quite know if I'm going to get to that now. But I played. That was my last gig before the pandemic was that band Skeleton Keys. But shortly before, before in December of 19. I was lucky enough. I have a project called Terrapin Chamber Ensemble, which is a collaboration with David Bryan, the vocalist, and the amazing Kenny Brooks from Rat Dog, Scott Guberman from Phil and Friends, Skip Vangelis from Dark Star Orchestra. For some songs, the Sugar Mag String Quartet, and the amazing Zach Nugent on guitar, who until recently was Melvin Seals and JGB Band's guitarist, who I've been lucky enough to play with it a bunch of times, and who has been fortunate enough to actually play Wolf, Jerry's guitar, on occasion. And on regular basis, he has an amazing clone, but he's been lucky enough to actually play Wolf and Tiger. So he's a really great guy. And we together, we do this project called Terrapin Chamber Ensemble, which are acoustic, vocal, and again, I say often string arrangements of the Dead performed in sacred spaces. Again, this music is so sacred for us. That's where we feel it really needs to be. In the past, we've done venues including a stone Gothic crypt in northern Manhattan, the crypt of the Ascension, which is actually the last working cemetery in Manhattan where Ed Koch is buried. So that's the Jewish connection to that site. But in December of 19, we were able to perform an amazing show at the Eldridge Street Synagogue Museum, the National Historic Synagogue on the Lower East Side. Beforehand, I was, again, interviewed by Mike Greenhouse, the editor-in-chief of Relics, on the Dead in Judaism, and we just had an amazing night, a Purim show, and was like one of my favorite performances, in the period right before performance stopped for way too long. So we have a whole bunch of stuff from that night. I would like to play The Eyes of the World, if you have that. I'm going to keep you up way too late, and I'm sorry about that. But I'd like to play that out, and I'm hoping afterwards we can squeeze in that Black Muddy River. But again, it's enough.
Wait a second. Here we go. Hold on.
Well, let's do it. Set that quality thing that we talked about. Here we go. days. Hope you enjoyed that. And I hope you weren't as critical on the first verse pitchiness as you've been on Donna's pitchiness.
No,
Okay, there,
I
Steve?
think it was wonderful. Lovely. I would love to listen to all 20 minutes of it, but we just don't have the time.
No, I hear that.
unfortunately.
That's where the whole
Your
Sugar
camera
Ring
is
thing
off,
is there, too.
Noah. Your camera is off. I don't know if you know that.
Oh. I don't know how that. There we
There
go.
you are. There you
You
go.
don't want to miss out on this, man. Let me tell you.
Okay, I don't know where Steve went, but anyway, here we are.
It-
Wow, there's this, we could go on and on because I know you have a lot more to share with us, but we have to go. We
Absolutely.
have to say goodbye. So we're
Right,
gonna have
and
to
let me
pick
just
this
say-
up next year.
Absolutely. I look forward to it. I will take you up on that. And if you want, I could also post some of the things that I didn't get a chance to share in
Okay.
the event or when you share this in the comments.
All right, that's all. I shared it on your Facebook page
Beautiful.
as well.
And let
as
me just
Ready to
also
Come
say-
Up.
Thanks. Let me just also say quickly, you can hear a lot more of my music at noahlehrman.com. Who would have thought that, including a lot of my different collaborations. And in addition to Froggy Days, fingers crossed and vaxxed and masked and seeing how things go, I'm also going to be appearing at the New York Harvest Festival on October 8th through 10th, which is in upstate New York, obviously, and is home of the 12th annual New York Cannabis Cup, which is legal for the first time this year.
For the
So-
first time.
So come
Oh,
on down and celebrate. And Gratefully Yours will also be both there and at Froggy Days.
Excellent. Okay, wonderful. And everybody, please go to radiofreenachlaot.com. You can see our fundraising widget at the top of the page. It says 12th annual 9 Days of Jerry. Click there to throw some change into our virtual guitar case because we need it. Thank you so much, Noah.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yes, I'm going to take us out with Black
all you
Muddy
do.
River. And
Yeah,
Steve-
I was hoping you would do that.
yeah, and Steve, we'll see you on the radio
Love and miss you,
after
Steve.
Shabbos.
9
See if you
days
can hear the
continues.
laughs, people.
9 days continues right up to Shabbos. Shabbos is Docha, Jerry, but we'll continue Saturday night. And
That's
next
right.
week we have hopefully Reb Moish and also Ken Rotem.
Right,
So-
and I'm gonna find a place to put Bill Bentowski back in the schedule somewhere too. So we'll be updating you all on that as news appears to us. So good Shabbos in Yerushalayim tonight. You gotta
Shabbos,
go cook for Shabbos
everybody.
now, Steve. Noah, thanks for
got it.
being with us. Thanks,
Thank
everybody.
you. Good Shabbos.
Good
Good
Shabbos.
Shabbos.
Everybody. Bye,
Thanks for
guys.
all you do.
When the last rose of summer breaks my face, and the hot sun chills me to the bone, when I can't hear the song for the sea, and I can't tell my pillow from a stone, I will walk alone by the last muddy river, of my own. When the last bolt of sunshine hits the mountain and the stars start to splatter in the sky, when the moon splits the southwest horizon with the scream of an eagle on the fly, I will walk alone by the black muddy river, listen to the ripples as they moan. I will walk alone by the black muddy river and sing me a song of my own. Black muddy river, roll on forever. I don't care how deep or wide, you got another side. Roll muddy river, roll muddy river, black muddy river, roll. Muddy river, roll on forever. I don't care how deep or wide, if you got another side. Roll muddy river, roll muddy river, black muddy river, roll. And it seems like the night will last forever, and there's nothing left to do but count the years. When the strings of my heart start to sever and stones fall from my eyes instead of years, I will walk alone by the black muddy river and dream me a dream of my own. I will walk alone by the black muddy river and sing me a song of my own. And sing me a song of my own.
Bye, everybody. Thanks for listening.
Bye.
We'll be back. Happy 9 days of Jerry.
Happy 9.